Divine revelation, what Jesus prophesied about the Trump-Putin meeting, its impact on our SACRE. In a quaint English village tucked among rolling hills, a familiar peace veiled the heart of the community. Yet, in the stillness of a late evening, a fervent pastor named Samuel knelt before the altar, a flickering candle casting shadows of divine intervention upon the chapel walls. The air grew thick with a supernatural presence, his heart racing in sync with the heavens. "Lord, grant us understanding," he whispered fervently, yearning for guidance amidst the brewing tension of the world. As he surrendered to prayer, a light enveloped him, and in that extraordinary moment, he felt a revelation igniting within his soul, a divine prophecy about the Trump-Putin meeting, a vision of peace that would ripple across nations and, most importantly, into his cherished village. The heavens roared with words of comfort, visions of unity dancing wildly in his mind. He could see the leaders shaking hands, their differences melting away in a blaze of heavenly light. In that celestial moment, he knew the fate of his community was intertwined with the outcomes of these two powerful figures. The Spirit vibrated within him, urging him to share this divine message, a beacon of hope amidst chaos. Yet, as the revelation echoed through the hills, murmurs of skepticism arose within his congregation. Could such monumental events affect their tranquil lives? Over cups of tea in the local pub, they debated, voices raised with uncertainty. What can a small village like ours do? Some sighed, while others clutched their hearts, sensing that perhaps their prayers had indeed reached lofty ears. Samuel embedded courage in their hearts, invoking their beloved local saint, Saint George, renowned for his unwavering bravery. These stories of courage and divine intervention ignited hope, reminding them of the miracles they had witnessed together. As the pivotal day approached, Samuel's faith faced a merciless test. His daughter fell gravely ill, her vitality dwindling like the last flicker of hope in the dimming light. Despair draped the village in shadows, yet Samuel, fueled by indomitable love, anchored them all in fervent prayer. Nights turned into vigils, the chapel alive with united voices calling upon divine mercy. Amidst doubts creeping like ivy into their hearts, Samuel persisted, his eyes cast heavenward, trusting for a miracle that felt more elusive with each ticking second. Then, amidst his darkest hour, a heavenly light broke through the gloom. Just when despair flirted dangerously with despair, miraculously, Samuel's daughter awoke, her laughter unfurling like the first bud of spring. The chapel burst into exultation, villagers trembling with joy, hearts ablaze with renewed faith. In that pivotal moment, God's presence was undeniable, seeping through the cracks of their lives, pulling them closer together. As the world watched the Trump-Putin meeting unfold, Samuel stood before his congregation, with compassion radiating from every word. "Hold on to hope," he exclaimed, inviting them to embrace trust that their prayers bore significance beyond comprehension. They witnessed miracles manifesting right before their eyes, reinforcing their belief in the power of collective devotion. Yet a heavy question loomed: could peace truly endure amidst chaos? Just then, troubling news broke that threatened to shake their renewed faith once again. Doubt flickered through the hearts of many once more. At that moment, Samuel retreated to the familiar embrace of the chapel, where shadows danced in the flickering candlelight. Alone with his thoughts, he poured out his heart to God. What is the purpose behind this vision? Will it change the world? Will it change us? Anxiety gnawed at him as he sought answers. His journey was just beginning. Would the divine thread bind not only their village but the world together in a tapestry of peace? Samuel's heart raced as he sought solace in prayer. The air was thick with an urgency that felt almost tangible. He poured out his doubts, fears, and hopes, his voice a whisper against the cathedral silence of the chapel. "Lord, if our prayers can move mountains, we must trust they can transform nations," he breathed, conviction reigniting the flicker of faith within him. Suddenly, a gentle wind swept through the chapel, stirring the candle flames and sending a cascade of light across the sacred space. It was as if the heavens themselves were responding. Samuel felt a warmth envelop him, a divine embrace reassuring him that revelations often come cloaked in mystery, waiting for hearts brave enough to seek them. The next morning, Samuel gathered his congregation once more, their faces a tapestry of hope and worry. The troubles of the world weighed heavily, yet as he stood before them, he remembered that their strength was in unity. "Friends," he began, his voice steady, "the fabric of our village is woven by God's hands. Together, we can face any storm." He spoke of faith, resilience, and the light that shines even in the darkest moments. Each word was a seed planted in the hearts of the villagers, encouraging them to nourish their faith amidst uncertainty. In sharing his own ordeal, the miracle of his daughter's recovery, he reignited their flames of hope, reminding them of what they had witnessed. As days turned into weeks, Samuel noticed something miraculous happening within the community. People began to emerge from their shells of doubt. Neighbors who had been distant started sharing their stories of hope and healing. They gathered to pray, not just for their village but for the world that seemed so disconnected, so troubled. It was a beautiful outpouring, an act of faith that rippled through their lives. One evening at the pub, as laughter and stories filled the air, old Mrs. Cartwright spoke up. "You know, Samuel, I think the world is watching us. Our prayers, they matter. What if our village can be a light for others?" Her words reverberated in Samuel's heart. "Perhaps this is our calling to be a beacon," he realized suddenly. The weight of his revelation deepened, and an excitement coursed through him. Their small community could inspire others far beyond the hills that cradled them. Yet, this revelation brought with it another question: how would they take their newfound faith into the world? As news broke of escalating tensions following the Trump-Putin meeting, Samuel felt a renewed fire stir within him. He gathered the villagers beside the chapel, their faces etched with concern. "We must stand together, united in prayer, not just for ourselves but for all nations grappling with strife," he urged passionately. The congregation nodded, some wiping away tears. The atmosphere shifted. Palpable faith surged among them. As they linked hands, a gentle light enveloped the group, reminiscent of that first moment of divine revelation in the chapel. Deep down, they sensed that they were part of something greater, a divine plan unfolding. Yet the weight of their prayer still hung heavy. Would their faith truly reach the leaders who held the balance of peace? Samuel couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was ushering them toward an unprecedented moment. With anticipation building within him, he prayed more fervently than ever, trusting that what they were living would not only shape their future but reverberate through the world. As the days drew closer to a pivotal moment in global affairs, Samuel knew profound transformation lay ahead. The world was changing, and it beckoned a hope that pushed back against darkness. But what divine surprises might still await them? As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Samuel found himself gathered once more with his congregation. Each face glowed not just from the warmth of the evening, but from a shared anticipation that hummed through their hearts. They each felt it, the ripple of hope, like the gentle waves on a still lake, resonating with divine purpose. "Tonight, we are not just praying for ourselves," Samuel said, his tone steady but imbued with urgency. "We are joining hands with the world. Each prayer we lift is a thread woven into the fabric of faith that can cover nations." The villagers echoed his sentiments, their voices intertwining as they recited prayers for leaders in turmoil, peace in conflict zones, and healing for the suffering. Samuel watched as emotions bubbled to the surface, tears fell, hearts opened, and a spirit of unity emerged unlike any he'd seen before. Then, as if the very air itself had thickened with purpose, a profound silence fell over them. It was in that sacred hush that Samuel felt a tremor in his spirit. The light around them did not just glow, it shimmered with an intensity that he could hardly describe. It felt like being wrapped in the embrace of 1,000 comforting whispers, assuring him that they were all held in divine hands. "Open your hearts," he called softly, "and listen." In that moment, the wind shifted. The soft rustling of leaves outside the chapel mimicked the sounds of a congregation, their prayers joining with his as they carried forth. Samuel instilled faith into every word as he said, "God is always speaking to us. Are we listening?" One by one, the villagers shared visions and impressions they'd received. A young man spoke of a dream where olive branches twined around swords, symbolizing peace where conflict reigned. A widow recounted how she envisioned a river flowing through their village, its waters healing the hurts of the world. Laughter mingled with sighs of relief, creating an uplifting atmosphere that felt almost electric. Samuel felt the fire of hope roaring within him. What if our faith here is the beginning of something greater? He pondered aloud, the thought igniting something tangible in the hearts around him. What if God has called us to stand in the gap, not just for our families, but for our leaders and our nations? In that very moment, something extraordinary happened. A shadow flickered across the chapel, accompanied by a soft, brightly illuminated presence. Samuel stilled, his heart racing in reverent awe. Was it an angel or simply the flicker of candlelight? God has not forgotten this village, Samuel whispered. We are not alone in this. As he spoke, the room seemed to pulse with a collective heartbeat, binding each soul present. From the depths of uncertainty and tension, emerged clarity and purpose. They were wielding a power few could fathom. A silence gripped the group again, but this time it was not heavy, it shimmered with expectancy. Samuel sensed that a divine revelation was on the horizon, something that could galvanize their village into catalysts for change. How shall we take this flame beyond our borders? He asked, eyes sparkling with inspiration. And with that question hanging in the air, the congregation began brainstorming, voices rising in unison, a movement igniting among them. Ideas flowed freely, prayers poured out with newfound vigor. They envisioned outreach programs, prayer chains linking them with others around the world, and moments of collective worship echoing with fervor. As discussions unfolded, a soft glow filled the chapel, casting shadows of possibility across the walls. Samuel sensed that something tremendous was brewing, yet he couldn't quite grasp what it was. But the question lingered heavily in the air: what would their coordinated prayers awaken? In that space between hearts and heaven, Samuel waited with anticipation, hoping for a glimpse of what lay ahead. The air felt electric, charged with prayers and hope as Samuel gazed out at the incandescent faces of his congregation. Each person seemed rooted in faith, their trust in God flickering like the candles dotting the pews. But there was something else, an undercurrent of divine expectation threading through their dialogue. Suddenly, a woman rose from her seat, her eyes bright with purpose. "We must remember that prayer isn't just wishful thinking," she declared. "It's our connection with the very heart of God. When we pray, we wield authority. Can you see it? It's not just our words. It's His power flowing through us." A chorus of murmurs rippled through the assembly. Samuel felt the weight of her statement settle upon him like a mantle. Yes. They were not mere bystanders, they were active participants in a cosmic design. As the crowd grew restless with enthusiasm, Samuel encouraged them, "Let us not limit our understanding of God's reach. We can touch lives beyond this village. What about our leaders? What if our prayers carry forth into the chambers of power?" One man shouted, "We could pray for unity among nations." What if our prayers reached even the hearts of those who seek division? The room erupted in agreement. Hope soared higher, igniting a flame of dreams that flickered brightly in every soul present. Samuel walked among them, feeling the pulse of possibility, urging them to keep sharing their thoughts. A young girl, her voice trembling with eagerness, added, "What if global conflicts began to melt away, like snow in spring? My teacher said it's hard, but doesn't God say with him, all things are possible? Isn't it His promise to us?" "Yes," Samuel proclaimed, a fire kindling in his own spirit. "What if we become the bridge of peace, the hands and feet of mercy, extending our reach into a world aching for reconciliation?" With each word, the crowd leaned closer, even the shadows felt alive with faith. They envisioned connecting with groups hundreds of miles away, engaging in prayers which could ripple outward like widening circles in a pond. Suddenly, the chapel door creaked open, and an unexpected guest stepped inside. He was a traveler, worn but noble in appearance, his eyes twinkling with understanding as he took in the scene. "I heard your voices from afar," he said softly, like an echo of truth that summons the weary. "And I come as a witness to what God is doing here." Beside Samuel, the murmured gasps mingled with a wave of exhilarating curiosity. Who was this man? What did he know? Samuel stepped forward, excitement threading through his dialogue. "You've come at a divine moment. We are calling forth a global movement through prayer. Will you join us?" As the traveler approached the center, a golden light wrapped around him, illuminating his features with an ethereal glow. It felt as if God Himself had sent this man as a sign, a confirmation of their gathering's significance. "This prayer you ignite is just the beginning," the traveler spoke, his voice steady and resonant like a deep bell tolling in the distance. "You are on the brink of a great awakening, and you must prepare. There are mountains to move, hearts to mend, and there are leaders whose ears will hear the call of your prayers." Samuel felt a shiver run down his spine. The road ahead expanded before them, an uncharted territory shimmering with possibilities. But then came a question that hung palpably in the air: what would be required of them to be ready for such a monumental task? In that moment, with anticipation thick around them, the congregation fell silent, eyes locked on the traveler, each soul yearning to hear what next step God would lay before them. The traveler's gaze swept across the congregation, a mixture of warmth and purpose emanating from him. "To embrace this awakening," he said, pausing to let his words settle into their hearts, "you will need more than mere words. It requires a posture of humility and a willingness to be molded. Each of you must ask, what is God revealing within my own heart?" A ripple of introspection passed through the crowd. Samuel could see faces filled with curiosity and concern, wrestling with the implications of such a challenge. He sensed a sacred urgency in the air, a divine invitation to peel back the layers of self-doubt and fear. "Seek the quiet places," the traveler continued as he moved gracefully among the pews. "In stillness, you will discover clarity. In prayer, commune with the one who knows your heart better than you do. You must also be prepared for trials, for the road of faith is often fraught with challenges." The words hung heavy, like incense rising toward heaven. Samuel saw a flicker of apprehension in the eyes of some, but also a glimmer of resolve. The struggle to yield to God's will stirred something deep within him, as well the recognition that surrender was integral to their collective mission. "What if our prayers begin to disrupt the status quo?" one of the elders murmured, his brow furrowed with concern. "What if the hearts we touch resist change?" The traveler nodded, acknowledging the elder's fear. "This is true. Change is not easy, even in the heart of the faithful. Yet remember, God's love is a fierce force. It can dismantle walls that seem insurmountable. You're not praying to create an outcome, you're praying to align with God's ultimate purpose. In that alignment, miracles will unfold." With each statement, the atmosphere grew thicker with faith. Those present felt as if they were on the precipice of something greater than themselves. Samuel's own heart raced. The echoes of their gathering weren't just reverberating within these walls. They were climbing higher, reaching out like hands of hope into the weary world outside. "Let us practice this posture of humility, this prayer of willingness," Samuel implored the assembly. "May we pray for our leaders in love, yes, even those we struggle to understand. Think of it. What if our sincere prayers could turn hearts toward peace instead of power?" A hush spread through the congregation as they envisioned the power of hearts transformed by prayer. The scene felt like a tapestry being woven by unseen hands, the threads of their intentions growing vibrant and strong. Then, the traveler raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. "Remember, great things start from small acts of faith. Pray not only for your community but for the obdurate ones far away, like those in positions of authority. From the most remote corners of the earth, join in a chorus of prayer that implores reconciliation and understanding." As Samuel took a deep breath, the weight of the traveler's words pressed upon him. He felt a divine spark igniting within, stirring an urgency to act upon this call, a call to join hands and hearts, a reminder of their part within a grand narrative that stretched across time and nations. The congregation, inspired and emboldened, began to rise, filling the air with fervent prayers. Samuel stood at the center, sensing the divine current enveloping them, urging them forth into this new season of growth. But what about the mountains to be moved? What would it take to carry this movement beyond the walls of their chapel? As the prayers surged upward, Samuel couldn't shake the feeling that deeper revelations awaited them. In that moment, he realized the true journey was just beginning. What anchors of faith would hold through the storm ahead? As the prayers flowed like a river, Samuel felt a swell of faith washing over him. The congregation's voices intertwined, creating a symphony of hope rising toward the heavens. Each note carried their desires and aspirations, the longing for transformation echoing through the rafters. They were a tapestry of believers, woven together by a shared purpose, a desire to seek God in the quiet and allow His will to shape their hearts. The traveler remained still, observing the blooms of faith unfurling around him. Samuel noticed how the faces of the congregation were no longer burdened. Instead, they glowed with an unexpected light, shining bright through uncertainty. They were shedding their fears and stepping into a new reality, one where trust in God was fully embraced. But just as this luminous moment began to settle, a slight breeze swept through the chapel, stirring the air with a sense of foreboding. The traveler, sensing the shift, turned to address the assembly with renewed fervor. "Dear friends, you have begun to pray powerful prayers. You have struck a chord within your spirits that calls for action. But as your hearts align with God's purpose, be aware the enemy seeks to unravel this unity and stir discord." Gasps echoed through the assembly, and Samuel's heart quickened. It was one thing to pray, it was quite another to face opposition. Prayer must be accompanied by vigilance and courage. The traveler continued, his expression steady yet filled with intensity. "When you push against the darkness, it will push back. Yet fear not, for those who trust in the Lord will find strength in His promises." Samuel's heart resonated with each word. The truths of faith were stitched together with struggle, perseverance, and hope. Would they hold true in the coming trials? He felt that challenge deep within. "What then shall we do?" Samuel called out, feeling the weight of responsibility. "How do we dare to step into a world that may be resistant to our light?" The traveler smiled gently, though a spark ignited in his eyes. "You must be prepared to listen, to hear God's whispers amidst the chaos. When you hear Him act, through even the smallest of acts, the powerful can be reached. Be compassionate, be brave, and do not shy away from sharing your light." As he spoke, Samuel imagined the scenarios. Discussions in boardrooms, conversations over kitchen tables, allies formed in the most unexpected places. Could love and understanding fracture the strongholds of fear and misunderstanding? It was a thought that both thrilled and terrified him. The twilight sun poured through the stained glass, lighting up their gathering in brilliant hues. "Remember the call of your prayers," the traveler said softly. "Draw close to one another, lean into the unity of your spirit. You are not just individuals, you are part of a larger body, connected by divine love." As they bowed their heads in collective reverence, the chapel seemed to thrum with energy. Samuel felt warmth radiate from within, as if every heart was synchronized in a divine heartbeat. The prayers that had risen carried new weight, a charge meant for action, a summons to step beyond the sanctuary. Suddenly, Samuel felt a divine nudge stirring him to speak again. He stood, heart racing, eyes wide. "Let us not just be hearers of the word, but doers. In the coming days, let us share our stories of faith. Let us witness to our neighbors, friends, and even those who oppose our beliefs. Together, we can be a living testament of God's love." A wave of murmurs surged through the crowd. Excitement mingled with apprehension. Could they truly do it? Would they rise to the challenge? As the service drew to a close, everyone held hands, a chain of faith that seemed to pulse with life. Samuel looked into the eyes of those near him and saw the flickers of belief, the trust beginning to overshadow doubt. But a question lingered in his heart. Would their united strength be enough to embrace the collisions ahead? What awaited them on the other side of their prayers? His spirit stirred, knowing the true adventure was only starting to unfold. What were the unseen trials God had set before them? And how might the world respond to their vibrant, faith-filled cries? With hope ignited and joy rising, they prepared to step into the unknown. As they stepped out of the chapel, the warm glow of dusk surrounded them like a comforting embrace. Samuel could hear the soft whispers of fellow believers, their hearts still buzzing from the powerful experience they'd just shared. A sense of determination laced their words, a collective promise to each other, and to God that they would not hide their light. "Did you feel it?" A voice bubbled up from the group. It was Miriam, her eyes wide with excitement. "That surge of unity? I've never felt anything like it. It's as if God is asking us to rise up. Yes. With every prayer, I felt something awaken in me, Samuel replied, his voice unmistakably charged. But we must be mindful of the challenges. More is expected of us now. As they walked through the grassy path leading to the parking lot, Samuel's mind raced. They were being called into something deeper, but it was accompanied by the weight of responsibility. It wouldn't be easy to face the world outside the comforting walls of the chapel, a world that often turned a blind eye to love. Maybe we should set a date for gatherings, suggested Marcus, always the practical one. Meet up, share our stories and encourage one another. It's one thing to pray together, it's another to act together. Nods and murmurs of agreement rippled through the group. Samuel smiled, feeling their resolve. Ideas began to take flight: shared meals, outreach events, maybe even community service where people could see their faith in action. Each thought was like a flame kindling hope. But lurking in the back of his mind was the traveler's warning. Opposition loomed. Samuel paused, looking over the horizon where the setting sun bathed the world in orange and gold hues. The beauty somehow contrasted the heaviness he felt. It was a reminder of God's promise even amidst uncertain times. Before we disperse, can we pray one more time? He asked, his spirit urging him to call for unity. The group formed a circle in the grassy clearing, hands clasped. Samuel led them into prayer again, each word an anointing, each breath a desire for guidance. As they prayed, Samuel felt a warmth envelop him, almost tangible. It was an unmistakable presence, stirring his heart and urging him to listen closely. The world faded away, and he tasted the sweetness of divine connection. In that moment, he heard a whisper amidst the growing silence, a guidance he couldn't ignore. You must speak, the thought echoed gently in his heart. As they finished, Samuel opened his eyes, his gaze resting on his friends. I believe God is asking us to be bold. We need to give our testimonies to those who don't yet know His love. We can start this week. Let us each share our faith story with someone. A delightful chorus of yes. And let us do it, erupted, each voice filling the evening with life. Yet a deeper thought came to Samuel, one not easily expressed. Were they truly ready to make that leap? Past experiences echoed in the corners of his heart. It felt much like stepping off a cliff where faith caught him in its embrace but with the potential risk of falling. Then an idea sparked. What if we face our fears together? Share not only our victories but also our struggles. His voice wavered slightly as he spoke. Are you ready for that vulnerability? The embrace of silence hung for a moment, their eyes interlocking in solemn understanding. It was a daunting leap, but faith often required courage. As they wandered off into the increasing shadows, hope lingered, but doubt tickled the edges of their minds. What if they faced closed doors? What if they were met with rejection? With each step into the unknown, Samuel felt the weight of possibilities swirling in the air around them. A prayerful heart and an unwavering resolve must guide their path. Could they, this new body of believers, be the catalyst for change in a world so resistant to light? As they parted ways, Samuel knew their true journey was just beginning. With every story, every testimony, they were sowing seeds of faith. But what unforeseen trials awaited them? And could their unity withstand the storms gathering on the horizon? The next morning, a crisp breeze swept through the streets, carrying with it whispers of a new day filled with promise. Samuel awoke with the enthusiasm of a child, his heart still alight from the previous evening. Gathered around friends, they had sparked a flame, igniting each other with faith's fervor. But as he prepared for the day ahead, a sensation lingered like an unseen weight pressing softly on his shoulders, reminding him of the bold steps he was meant to take. Today is the beginning, he whispered to himself, running a hand over his Bible as he reflected on his morning prayer. The sun peered into his room, casting soft rays across the pages, illuminating promises and stories of courage. He felt an inexplicable pull towards the community center where the talk of gatherings had stirred excitement the night before. It felt like the right place to start laying the foundation of their mission. At breakfast, Samuel's mother noticed the excitement radiating from him. You look different today. What's on your mind, son? she asked, setting down a warm piece of toast. Samuel hesitated, unsure how to convey the newfound urgency in his heart. I think we're supposed to share our stories, Mom. I want to talk about faith and hope. To those who need it most. Her smile widened. That's wonderful. It's not easy, though. Are you ready for the questions that might follow? Her words sank in, sending a flutter of doubt through Samuel's spirit. But then he remembered their promise to face fears together. With God's help, I believe we can be ready. After breakfast, he took off towards the community center, a palpable excitement thrumming beneath his skin. Upon arrival, he found the building buzzing with the hum of activity. The meeting hall was filled with tables, some decorated for welcoming newcomers, and others displaying pamphlets about faith-based programs. Samuel! A voice erupted from the crowd. It was Miriam, vibrant and beaming as she bounded toward him. I've been thinking a lot about last night. Together, we can really make a difference. Exactly. He felt renewed energy. Let us gather our friends and see how we can plan our first outreach. The sooner, the better. They shared ideas, laughter rising between them like a new dawn breaking through the night. They divided tasks, creating leaflets, organizing a meet-up point for their first group sharing, and prayer sessions that would pave the way. Days turned into weeks, and soon their small gatherings were turning into a movement, an affirmation of faith solidifying in the community. Word spread, and people began to show interest, a blend of believers and seekers alike. Samuel noticed those who were searching in their eyes, a mixture of skepticism and yearning. He remembered the feeling of trepidation that once had gripped him, and it drove him to connect deeper. But soon, opposition began to emerge. It started subtly, a comment from a passerby who overheard their discussions, dismissing faith as old-fashioned. Then came a more aggressive response from a few in the community, questioning their motivations. Samuel could feel that weight returning, the fear of rejection nudging at the edges of his heart. Yet, amidst the storm of doubt, Samuel found peace in prayer and in his bond with his friends. Together, they shared experiences of joy and pain, building a tapestry of solidarity unlike anything he had known before. Each moment in prayer became a powerful thread, binding them in resolve and divine purpose. One evening, during a prayer meeting, Samuel stood firm. We can't let fear dictate our faith. We're meant to shine brighter in darkness. We need to remind everyone that hope is real and love conquers all, even opposition. As they united in prayer, a sense of divine purpose flowed through the room. A glimmer of mischief danced through his heart as he pondered the trials to come. Could they stand tall against the undercurrents pushing back? Would rejection become their greatest testimony? With hearts united, they prayed for courage and guidance. Just as they finished, expectations hung in the air. Samuel wondered what divine interventions awaited them. What miracle would surface in their journey, turning doubts into undeniable faith? More than ever, they felt compelled to move out into the world, trusting the Lord with every step. But what would unfold when they took that leap? The excitement and trepidation melded together as they prepared for yet another day of outreach. As dawn broke the next day, Samuel felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. The challenges of yesterday had started to seep into his spirit, transforming that initial enthusiasm into a knot of uncertainty. Miriam had suggested they meet for morning prayer before their outreach, and though he agreed, doubt lingered in his mind. Arriving at the community center, the familiar faces of his friends greeted him with smiles, but Samuel couldn't shake off the heaviness in his heart. They gathered together in a circle, a sanctuary formed from shared belief and fervent whispers. With heads bowed, he could hear the soft murmur of prayers rising to the heavens. As they prayed, a profound stillness enveloped the room. Samuel felt an invisible hand resting on his heart. It was a reminder of the promise he had made to share hope. Opening his eyes, he looked around at the faces of his friends. Ghosts of anxiety, too, flickered behind their bright eyes. We must remember why we're here, he said softly. We have each other, and we have a message of love to spread. With that declaration, something shifted. Encouragement mixed with determination flowed freely. They planned their outreach with a renewed sense of urgency and excitement. The ideas they birthed rippled with anticipation: a community barbecue, prayer corners, music, and heartfelt discussions on faith. Each member stepped forward to take on a role, their talents shining like stars in a night sky. When the sun reached its zenith, they set out, armed with pamphlets and smiles, ready to embrace anyone drawn to their light. Samuel stood tall among them, his heart racing as they approached the park where they'd decided to gather. At first, things flowed smoothly. Families picnicked nearby, children laughed, and the sound of music played in the background. They engaged warmly with passers-by, offering simple testimonies and inviting them to join their gathering. Yet, even as he felt the warmth of connection, an all-too-familiar tension built within him. A specter of doubt resurfaced. Then it happened. A group of critics arrived, faces lined with skepticism. Samuel could feel the energy around shift. One man raised his voice, dismissing them publicly. "Who needs this nonsense?" he scoffed, crossing his arms. "You really think faith can change anything?" The sharpness of his words pierced through Samuel's heart like a sword. The momentum that had filled the air deflated, leaving behind a cloud of despair. Still, he remembered the prayers, the love shared among his friends. Breathless, he stepped forward, reliance on the Holy Spirit guiding his every move. "Faith isn't about having all the answers," he began, voice steady despite the weight of his uncertainty. "It's about holding on to hope when the world doesn't make sense. We don't claim to have all the solutions, but we believe in something greater, a love that is strong enough to overcome doubt." Around him, he could feel his friends rallying. The critic's scorn morphed into quiet contemplation, the tension dissipating just enough to welcome dialogue. The conversation that ensued felt electric. Questions poured forth from the doubters, their dismissive tones softened as they sought understanding. People began to gather, intrigued. Samuel began to feel that pivotal fire sparking again, illuminating hearts. As he spoke, he was met with nods of agreement and murmurs of support. He could sense walls breaking down. Hope radiated within that circle, stretching out toward everyone present. Hours slipped by, and they shared stories of trials and triumphs, reflecting how faith had shaped their paths. Laughter and tears intertwined, each testimony binding them closer. The initial skepticism seemed replaced by a new curiosity, a faint whisper of something divine. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, Samuel sensed a sacred calling in that moment, a shift, a divine revelation that they were meant to be there, right then and there, emboldened to stand amid the storm of doubt. And yet the question lingered, were they truly ready for what would come next? Would this moment propel them into deeper waters of faith, demanding an even greater leap? Samuel's heart fluttered with excitement and fear, anticipating the next chapter in a journey that felt more than just theirs. What awaited them when they truly embraced the call to step boldly into the unknown? The day had finally arrived, the eve of their gathering, the culmination of hope and faith woven through every prayer and whispered promise. The sky glowed with the blush of sunset as Samuel stood once more in the chapel, the flickering candles casting soft shadows of reverence across familiar walls. The congregation was buzzing with anticipation, a tapestry of souls eager to witness the unfolding of God's plan. "Tonight, we stand at a divine crossroad," Samuel proclaimed, the warmth of confidence igniting his words. "What has begun in prayer will flourish in actions. We are not alone in this." The congregation leaned in, their expressions alight with eagerness and trepidation. Samuel felt that familiar energy, a divine heartbeat pulsing through them, weaving their very spirits into one. As he scanned their faces, familiar yet transformed by their shared journey, he saw not just individuals but a collective force ready to impact the world. But deep within him, doubt stirred like a restless tide. What challenges awaited them in the night? Would their fresh determination hold firm against the storms that could rise? Yet he shook off the worry. They had walked this far together, and there was divine strength in unity. "Let us share our stories," he encouraged, inviting others to speak their hearts. One by one, members of the congregation began to share their fears, triumphs, and dreams. Miriam spoke of her struggles as a single mom, how faith lit her path even during dark nights filled with uncertainty. An elderly man recounted how his stroke had nearly dimmed his spirit until the prayers of the young had reignited hope in him. Each testimony was a flame, flickering brightly, melding into a collective brilliance that filled the chapel with a palpable fervor. The atmosphere thickened with the sacred breath of belief, igniting a fresh sense of purpose. Samuel watched as skepticism melted away like the remnants of winter under the touch of spring's warmth. Suddenly, a young girl stood. What if we made a chain of prayers? What if we each took one act of kindness to share God's love? Her innocent boldness propelled a hush through the assembly. It was as if everyone sensed this was a divine nudge and invitation to something greater. Let that be our charge, Samuel declared, feeling that electric sense of unity. From tonight onward, let us respond to every need we see. Let us show the world how faith manifests in action. With each passing moment, hearts grew fuller, eyes brighter, until they finally linked hands, a circle of connection, a visible testament of faith ready to spill into the world. Samuel felt the unmistakable presence of God surrounding them. That beloved promise, the blessing of togetherness, of shared purpose, resounded like a sacred hymn in his heart. As prayers ascended to the heavens, the chapel filled with divine anticipation. Samuel felt the weight of their collective energy, a river of heartfelt longings winding through the threads of hope, carrying them forth into the night. Outside, as the stars sparkled overhead like God's own confetti, Samuel realized this simple village, so often unnoticed on the world stage, had now become a lighthouse, illuminating dark waters with its collective faith. They would step boldly beyond the familiar and into an unknown yet beckoning future. Remember, dear friends, Samuel urged as they departed from the chapel, this is just the beginning. Our journey will stretch far beyond ourselves. What we sow here tonight may manifest across nations. With those words still echoing in the air around them, they ventured out, greeting neighbors, strangers, and friends with kindness. They spread joy like seeds that would bloom, showing love in tangible ways, their small acts knitting together an unseen fabric of divine connection and purpose. The village was alive, fraying edges of doubt trailing behind them as they embarked on their mission of faith. They encountered skeptics and believers alike, weaving threads of conversation into the hearts of everyone they met. And through it all, they began to see that the prayers they lifted, those earnest cries for love and unity, were indeed transforming not just their community but resonating with an energy that rippled outward far beyond what their eyes could grasp. As they shared laughter and stories, one thing became abundantly clear. Just as God had propelled them into transformation, they could inspire that same change in others. Every shared moment, every hug exchanged, became a testimony of the power of faith in action, a divine canvas where each small gesture painted a brighter picture of hope in their world. And so, one quiet evening, just as Samuel stood with his heart full, he felt God's light surge through him, a reminder that every ripple of hope mattered, that every soul played a crucial role in the divine masterpiece unfolding around them. They embraced the season of their lives, where trials became stepping stones, and each act of kindness, compassion, and faith interwove a thread that reached back to their Creator, a tapestry that would tell a story echoing through ages to come. And thus, the village thrived, not just surviving but radiating a legacy of hope, the hope that twinkled in every heart, the hope that would carry them through whatever storm awaited, and the hope that whispered eternally, reminding them of the most profound truth: they were never alone. Samuel stood at the threshold, looking back at his beloved village, at the tapestry woven through prayer and purpose. His heart swelled with gratitude, knowing God had ignited a movement, a divine call to impact all who sought the warmth of love. Now, dear friends, this is your call to action. This is the moment to show your support and join this divine journey. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive stories of faith that will inspire your journey and spark transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and continue spreading these beautiful messages of hope. Comment below with your reactions and testimonies about tonight's powerful ending. Your words could inspire someone else to believe, and most importantly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this divine manifestation. Don't wait even one more second. Step into action as true servants of God.